how to break down and install woofer ribbons for the caliper, duetta, diva, etc. What we first need to do, the parts that you will need, you'll either have prints for them or the parts will be sent to you, are 2 mounting bars to rest the speaker on to keep it off of the tables. What you want to do is basically lay the speaker across the 2 bars. Once you have the speaker up here, what you want to do is flip it over. Walk it back and forth. What you're looking to do is take off the cup to release the crossover on the other side. They're always held on by Phillips head screws. I will send along with everything the bits for all the products that we need to use them for. Simply unscrew the cup, the plate on the back. You should be able to twist it, turn it, and pop it through. Once you pop it through, turn the speaker over again. Once you've popped the cup out through the front side of the speaker, everything's attached to the crossover. What you want to do on the slant side of the speaker, there's 2 machine screws, which is an 1/8 inch Allen wrench, holding down the connections. There should be a lock washer, machine screw, and a big flat washer. Keep in mind that whatever parts you take off, try and remember where they go, because sometimes they can be specific for each individual speaker. Once you've basically released all of the wires, what you need to do then is remove the crossover along with the coil. A couple different tools that will be sent to you, whichever you feel more comfortable using: a pry bar, a spatula, and a flatter pry bar. The flatter pry bar seems to work very good on taking the coil off. The coil, where it has such thin walls, can actually break, but where this is so flat, it'll kind of slide right underneath. Also, both units should and will be held down with silicone to prevent any vibrations and whatnot. Sometimes the crossover is actually screwed down. Sometimes it's stapled down. Simply start at one corner. Just slowly work at it. If you have any extra there, don't worry about it, we'll scrape it off. With the staples here, you can either use needle nose pliers, a little screwdriver, or a little staple puller. We came across this somewhere. I'll see if I can find one for you folks. Very carefully try and pop up a majority of the staples holding the coil down. Also keep in mind, try not to score the coil. It has a coating on it, but try not to short it out. Should be able to get 3/4 of the way around. Once you released X amount of them with this flat one, It almost acts as a chisel at the same respect. It has a little sharp edge on it. You can even try this. Sometimes what you will find underneath here is T-nuts, which this one has, and I'll show you once we get to it. That might hold a little bit of resistance from you applying the chisel and whatnot underneath. Then you've released your whole crossover network. Set this off to the side. Make sure no wires fall off. There are some wires that are used for direct drive. Throw this off to the side. These are the T-nuts that I was referring to. Also, I'll supply you folks with a chisel. Clean off any extra silicone. Take off the old masonite from the backing of the board. These T-nuts, there's either 3 on one side or 4 on, both sides. These are the T-nuts that hold the braces on the back when you're actually standing the speaker up. After the crossover has been removed, what we want to do is take out the whole diaphragm, break the whole speaker down, and I'll show you the certain steps and procedures to do that. On the straight side of the speaker, you'll see a series of holes. With there's a machine bolt in there with a washer, and should be 2 washers on it. Also applied, back them all out. Make sure you don't lose any washers. These screws are the tensioning screws that you'll use after the new ribbon is put in and cured. That you'll end up using these to tune the speaker. Once you remove those, what you can do, both the top clamp and the bottom clamp, 2 screws holding this on, remove it. Once you have removed the top and bottom clamps, simply with a razor, next to this edge of the clamp, cut the old ribbon out. As soon as you release that, you'll see the whole magnetic structure underneath. Again, using a hammer and a pry bar, using the same square head drive, you'll find on the straight side, along with the slant side of the speaker, a series of screws. These screws simply hold the two clamps together, the bottom one and the top one, holding it together while the silicone is bonding when you'll see when we go to install the new one.
And page 273, please, and 273. Mary Hazelwood, lead operator, please. Mary Hazelwood, please.
On the slants, on the straight side, you will find either four to seven holes, depending upon which model speaker you're working on, a counterbore with either a Phillips head or a square head bit below the surface. Those ones are do not take those ones out. Those are the ones that hold the bottom clamp down. Remove the ones from the slant side also. Once you have removed all of the screws from both the clamps, both the straight and the slant, then you want to grab a pry bar and a hammer, starting at one end, right at the edge. Carefully work at it. If there's a lot of resistance with it coming up, you want to grab probably another pry bar and work your way down the line. Just switch them right down the line. Some of them will come up fairly easy, some can be kind of tricky. The older the product, a little trickier it will be separating the two clamps. Release the two clamps. Do the same thing for the slant side. Once you've released the two clamps from each other, you need to do is with a chisel, clean off all the excess ribbon. The old silicone and the aluminum foil off of the clamps. If you don't clean off all the old foil, there is a remote chance that the new ribbon, when it gets installed, if it's a hair over crossing one of the tracks of the new ribbon, it could short it out. Once you've cleaned all the excess foil and tape and silicone off of the clamps, you'll end up with a view like this. Also, on the slant side of the speaker, you have the aluminum foil. This is held down by a double-sided tape. What you want to do is remove the double-sided tape along with the foil. Just remove everything. What we're looking to do is basically start from scratch. You need the chisel to get it off. Another thing what you need to check for is the little foam strips on all sides of the clamps. One test that I do, just run your finger back and forth. If it breaks down, really decays quick, it needs to be replaced. Just so happens this foam seems to be fine. The top and bottom clamps do not have a lot of pressure on them like the side clamps do. That's probably why the top and bottom foam is basically fine. Just rub your finger back and forth. If it's really compressed, but your finger will not just rub it off like you can see that I'm doing right here, what you might want to do is with a chisel or a razor, just slice it off and replace it with new foam. Do all the clamps, whatever you need to do. This is strictly a dampening foam that goes between, on either side of the ribbon. The ribbon will lay in between this foam and the foam on the top clamp. You might have some extra silicone. Make sure you trim everything off. Seeing that we're replacing all the foam anyway, go the extra step and put the new foam on the top and bottom. We've gone this far. Once you've taken all the foam off, your debris, all the extra foam kicking around, what we need to do now is vacuum the whole surface. Clean all the clamps off. Any little particles have to be thrown out. If you have, where this is a magnet structure, any magnet chips, metal chips, even a tiny piece of this, if it's caught in between here, where the ribbon is going to be laying across it, there's a very good chance the ribbon could buzz when you install the new woofer ribbon. rule of thumb, once I've cleaned it, what I want to do is go back and forth, check the levels of the magnets. Sometimes, you know, if you get a speaker back, obviously the woofer ribbon has been punctured for whatever reason, whether it's just a little tiny ding or someone hit it real good, just to make sure that they didn't loosen any of the magnets. The magnets usually stay on there. I've never really had a problem with it popping off. Also go around, check in between for all big magnet chips, metal particles, anything that might cause the ribbon to buzz. Just so happens I got a fairly clean one. If you have a really dirty structure, what you can sometimes do is actually take some tape of some sort and just stick it to it to get the dust and dirt off of the ribbon itself. Once you've cleaned it, once you've cleaned the whole diaphragm, what you want to do on the straight side of the speaker, you'll see a series of barrel bolts. These barrel bolts are the same, tied into the spring bolts that you took out, for the most part, one of the earliest steps. Remove all of these. After you've removed all those, for the most part, you have the speaker starting from scratch. Now we got to backtrack and go towards the point of putting a new woofer ribbon in. First step, we want to replace all the foam that we ripped off. When you put the new foam down, try not to stretch it a lot. It wants to be, for the most part, flush right with the edge of the clamps. Just lay it into position, tack it down. If you stretch it too much, you might want to pull back, you know, down the road. Top and bottom clamps, you need to put 2 little strips. Clamps. All you're doing is basically just replacing all the foam that you took off. Strictly a foam that's to prevent any buzzing and vibrations between the ribbon or the front cover, where this is the front part of the clamp. Once all the foam has been replaced, next step, you want to put a new piece of the double-sided tape down, the one that we pulled up. This also will be supplied to you. Line it up with the back side of the block, up to the top block. Tuck it down the block onto the loop frame. And just take your razor.
Nitro drop with extension 261.
And trim off the excess. This tape is strictly to hold down the outside tracks of the ribbon after we install it. After this point, for the most part, you're ready for a woofer ribbon. The only part that I can't emphasize enough is to make sure that there is no debris whatsoever underneath, that will be underneath the ribbon, such as little magnet chips near the woofer. So at this point, I'm basically ready for a woofer ribbon. So what I will do again is vacuum this whole section once more to ensure that there's nothing in there. Just to let you know, what I've done is actually replaced that duetter speaker that we had with a caliper speaker. Just to the fact that I don't actually have a woofer ribbon ready for the duetter yet, but I do have one for the caliper, and this one was already broken down. That's why I broke that one down to show you how. The next stage of the game, the only difference between the duetter and the caliper is just a little smaller. 2, 4, 6, 7. You might have 8 screws on the duetter versus 7 or 8 on this one. The next stage of the game, what we need to do, on the straight side of the speaker, you'll find 5 either square head or Phillips head screws with either plastic or metal washers with a rubber grommet. All this is designed to do this is strictly a method that we came up with to hold this clamp down, along with what you need to do. You want to tighten it down to the point where you can still spin it, but it's not super tight. It's not compressed. If it's compressed, this clamp, what's going to happen is it's going to need to slide back and forth, as you can see what I'm doing. The spring bolts that we'll have in here that we took out earlier, once they're back in, as we tighten that, this will actually compress as we tighten. So if this is too tight, this won't move. But also in the same respect, if it's too loose, this clamp can go up and down a lot. Okay? If by chance sometimes the grommets have formed, a little silhouette of this egg-shaped hole, what you can do then is flip it over and you'll use the flat part of it. Just turn the grommet right over and do the same thing. If you have one that's overly compressed, we'll end up replacing it. We can send you some replacements and put them in your inventory. This would be too loose. Just enough. You can still spin it, but the clamp is not loose. If you find that it is too loose, or too tight. If you actually follow this, you'll see these holes, the counterbore hole. It actually has a through hole, so you can get to it to loosen it or tighten it if you need to. Once you get these to the proper tensioning, what we will supply you is with some 1/8" shims. You want to put the shim in between the clamp and the spring bar. This will, once you install a ribbon, you have your top clamp on there with the ribbon in there. This will allow you the room to tune the speaker. If this clamp is butted all the way up, you'll never be able to tune it. You need to have that gap in there. The next item that you will need, which I will give you the dimensions of everything to make, or we'll figure out how you will obtain one of these. This, what we'll do is we'll put one of these at the top and the bottom of the speaker. This is for clamping the woofer ribbon, stretching it on the top and the bottom. You'll notice that this pin is strictly clamped together. This whole unit will come off. That's what the pins are for. You'll lay the ribbon. These two will clamp it. The ribbon will lay in between these two screws. So you won't actually put the screw through the ribbon. You'll put it on either side of the ribbon. You'll end up tightening it down, as you'll see in another step or two. Butt it up to the bottom. Also, we have the exact same thing for the bottom of the speaker. You'll have one for both the top and the bottom. Unscrew the top part of the clamp, leaving the bottom one. Okay. One thing you might have to obtain, the tensions of the ribbons are such that it might be, feel kind of tight. So as you can see on the bottom side, it just so happens we have some steel that we laid on here strictly for weight to hold it in position when we go to stretch it. Both the top and the bottom. Next step is we'll show you how to get the ribbon out. When you order a ribbon from us, it'll end up coming in a tube such as this. What you'll end up doing, it's extremely fragile. Very carefully pop the end off. Just with the weight of your hand. Do not on a flat table somewhere, an open area, what you want to do is you want to be able to roll the ribbon out. Okay? There is wax paper on it. Just be careful, it might stick a little.
AJ Garvey 260, please. AJ 260.
Very carefully, just blow it out. Once you've laid the whole ribbon out, what you then want to do is you can decipher the narrow end to the wider end, the top being the narrower. You want to lay the straight side of the ribbon into the unit. Just place it in there. Let me show you the positioning where you want to drop it in. Right before we go to lay the ribbon into the woofer frame, what you need to do, the very bottom row magnets along with the very top row magnets. You'll see a couple magic marker lines. Also, you should see some on the clamps. If they are, gone from cleaning the clamps and whatnot, with a straight edge of some sort, you want to make those lines. These lines are what you are going to use to line your woofer ribbon up with, both the bottom and the top. After you've made those lines, everything's nice and clean, your mounting fixtures and clamps for the woofer ribbons are in position. Now you're ready for the woofer ribbon.
Roller.
Where we are going to lay the ribbon into this frame, the edge of the straight side of the ribbon is going to lay right in front of these 5 grommets. Okay? You don't want to lay it on top. Also, in the same respect, you don't want the woofer ribbon to drop in here. If you do, twisting and moving it will actually, you kink it very easily when it's such a delicate item. So what I'll end up doing, very far end of the woofer ribbon in the top part of it, grab each end, very gently come over with it, and lay it approximately where it should go. You notice it's laying right in front of the grommets. You'll see on this point, you have your black line, which we marked earlier. Same thing at the bottom, we have the black line. What you want to do, the second cut down from the top, what you need to do is line the second cut down from the top up with that magic marker line. If you just eyeball it to get it basically, straight, not really twisted. If you have to, this clamping fixture, if you have to move it back and forth so that you can get to the screw holes to hold it down. Take that clamp that you took off earlier, lay it on top. Taking your wrench, keep in mind, everything underneath this ribbon is magnetic. Any metal objects, things fall, just keep your hand between everything. Tighten it right down, snug it up, so it's not going to move. For the most part, the top is in its basic position. Now what we want to do is move to the bottom part of the speaker. You'll see that the bottom part needs to be stretched. What we'll end up doing, very carefully, just slightly stretch it. At the bottom, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to line the second cut up from the bottom, up with the magic marker line. Very carefully tighten down this clamp again. Now everything's clamped. Now what we need to do is take the bottom fixture that we just clamped and the top one and slide it back and forth to line up the second cut up with the line. What we are trying to achieve is there'll be a cut in the middle of every magnet and also a cut in between every magnet. A lot of the times you can take the corrugation, just follow the corrugation line over to that. Okay. The slant side of the speaker can be a little tricky because usually the line is underneath. What you might want to do, just lift it up, take a look under and just see which direction you have to go with it. If you have good lighting right above you, what you can end up doing is looking at it through the capped-on tape. Okay, I can see the little black line in between there. What you'll do is get the bottom lined up, then you'll move to the top. Doing the same thing at the top. Pull it nice and even. When you're pulling it and stretching it, make sure that the ribbon does not get caught on the grommets. If you need to, just pull it out a little, just till you can get it lined up. You can always push it back once it's lined up. Again, I'll look, follow the corrugation over, line it up with the black line. In the same respect, I'll do the same over here. I'll look underneath to obtain my black line. Okay, you see the little black line through there? Same with here. After you stretch one end, then the other end, go back and double check the other end just to make sure nothing has moved. This end needs a little tweaking. Now, what you want to do, once it's lined up top and bottom, take the ribbon and move it in just so it's just in front of the rubber grommets. What you're looking to achieve is to have the ribbon far enough in to the point where, if you can actually see this, you probably can't see it on the camera, but you can see the little foam strip that you put underneath on the bottom clamp. The silicone is going to end up being between the foam strip and this cut. If the silicone's out here, it will not grab anything. It will not hold the ribbon because the capped-on will stretch. So what you might have to do, just move the ribbon in just a little wherever you need to. Nice and easy and gentle. Sometimes you might have to take the rubber grommet and just push it back a little. Okay, with the knife, what you want to do is cut off the extra foil. Now that everything's lined up, it's in position. When you're moving around, try not to bump into this. If you bump into it, you'll throw your alignment all off. Both at the top and the bottom. Now what you need to do is visualize the bottom clamp, slant clamp, and top clamp. What you need to do is locate these holes that are going to go through the ribbon into the bottom clamp. Starting at the bottom, very lightly with the hand, come up. You can slowly feel the back edge of the clamp. And approximately 1/4 of an inch in, off the back edge, the bottom edge, all of a sudden you feel a little nub, a circle. Follow the corrugation down in a straight line, you'll feel the other little nub. Do the same thing at the top. You have obviously a little less room to play with, but follow the corrugation, you feel the other one. What we're going to do is punch holes. Before we punch the holes, though, just to confirm that they are the actual holes instead of a nail hole that we hold the clamp down with, confirm it with the clamp, just to make sure that we did find the right ones. Slant clamp. Basically along the same idea. Come in, you hit the back edge. Find the top. Top and the outside edge. It's approximately that far down. Right there. Do. Get out to the bottom. What you then can do is either look underneath, find the hole, or very carefully, just as if it's in position, take it, pop it off.
Not for 3 units. I'd have to open them all and test them all.
Doing is just laying it on those 2 blocks, just very gently.
We haven't seen it do 40 back yet.
Find the holes.
So we have a bunch of products. Yes.
We still doing 100% for 640?
No. We were saying.
After you found the holes, what you need to do, we'll send you a punch. It's a steel punch, so hang on to it good so nothing falls inside. Very carefully, center it over the hole. Tap it. One thing you want to do at this point, when you're punching the holes, very carefully take these shims out. Just with the vibration, they could fall in the middle. If it doesn't come out, you can end up doing, pop it out that, or finish the cut with a little razor blade.
There's literally hundreds of them up on the shelf. So that's not a big deal. So I'd say we're doing pretty good. So, but this
Punch out all the holes down the slant side, top and bottom.
well, I mean, it's good. It's good right now because
Here again, a couple that didn't come out. Finish the cut.
But we can just do these just fine. Yeah, these are just fine. You know, as I said, I put a guy with one of the girls in there how to do these. Just set them up and say, push them. That's all you need to do, except when the girl.
Is there any voice to this movie? The top and bottom holes are the most critical ones. When you're punching the round holes, make sure that there are no jagged edges towards the inside. The woofer ribbon wants to flex like this when it's in motion. If there's any jagged edges, there is a potential for it to actually split down, break the path in two. So if you have to, with the razor, just trim it out nice and smooth. All the holes are punched, everything's lined up. Basically what we're ready for, to put silicone on either side of the ribbon. What you want to do, one end of the table, you need a little bit of distance. What you need to do is have it nice and clear and clean. Take all the clamps, everything off one end. Now that the end of the table is cleared off, free of all debris, what we want to do is flip the ribbon back so we can get to underneath it. Okay. One thing you have to be careful about, if there was debris on there, this side of the ribbon, capped on tape is sticky. You can see that it pulls up. So it's very important to have a clean place where you're laying it. What you want to do, not moving the whole fixture, you just want to remove the clamp. Lift it straight up. And with a stick long enough, nice straight edge, just roll it back. What you want is the back side to the back side. Very carefully come down with it. This way, the tape will not stick to anything. It will not stick to itself. There's no way it can. You need to do now, on all 4 clamps, both the 2 bottoms and the 2 tops, we need to lay a silicone bead. You want to lay the silicone bead right on the edge of the foam, so an 1/8 inch off the foam, approximately a 3/16 diameter bead, enough where once you put the ribbon, clamp it, it'll spread out, some towards the foam and some towards this way. Keep in mind though, if you do have it too far back, you will not grasp that one part of the ribbon. Do that on all 4 clamps. Use your finger as a guide going down.
I want you like a heads up on that.
Now that your silicone's down, you release that. What you want to do is go in reverse. Bring the ribbon back onto the clamping fixture.
So that was my mistake.
Just go in reverse of what you just did. Down with it. Hold it up. Just get rid of your third hand there. When you're coming down, after you've relaxed it, watch the grommets. Use the grommets as a guide this way, how far out to go. Come down with it. Very carefully drop it into position. After you dropped it in position, just confirm that nothing got banged and shifted. All your holes are still in alignment. The ribbon is in alignment. Now you want to replace your shims. Very carefully. Remember, there's all magnets under there. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of ribbons that way. Training people.
So, that's the world. So you can
Starting on the straight side,
do those guys count?
flip it right over. Rest it against the shims. Use your finger as a guide at the bottom to line up the 2 clamps. Just to keep, get you in the close proximity of where you want to be. Just rest it on there. Just give it a little press, just to press out some of the silicone, to spread it out a little. Using the screws that you took out earlier. Replace those. Starting from the middle, you want to tighten them down. Keep your hand between the wrench and the ribbon. One of the reasons we use a square head is that it doesn't want to slip off as easy as a Phillips head might slip off. You want to tighten it down, nice and tight. After you've clamped down the straight side of the speaker, what you want to do, just a quick run around to that side, Jump to the slant side. You stand the slant clamp up on edge. Take a screw on each end.
Can I borrow that camera tonight?
Use your thumb to hold it in. Use the 2 screws, one on each end, just for alignment, to align the clamp up. Just keep one end up. Come down. Give it a little turn just so it's not going to fall out. Do the same thing at the top. Bring it down. Give it a little turn. Put the rest of the screws in.
Yeah.
If you get some holes, screw holes that they're under the Velcro, you know, in the beginning you can just take the old Velcro off with the chisel. Again, starting from the middle. Tighten it down.
Yeah. We have no idea where ourselves are.
Okay, once we're both the slant and the straight clamp are all tightened down, everything's in position, what we want to do is jump back to the straight clamp. All of the barrel bolts that we took out earlier, you want to put them back in. You want the slotted head up. So if you have to do any adjustments with a screwdriver, you can align it up. Pop those all in.
I gotta figure out why this one is dead.
With a flathead screwdriver, you can almost look down on the side, slowly turn it until you see the barrel bolt. Go down easy. If you pop it all the way to the bottom, it could be too far. A lot of times you can just take a little Allen wrench, just pop it up a little. Just to pop it up, just to bring it up a little. After all your barrel bolts are in, you want to replace the spring bolts. Very carefully, whether it's what you want to do is start at the top or the bottom of the speaker. Just on the edge of the clamp, making sure that your fingers don't go too far down so you don't dimple that. Just want to hold it. Sometimes when you're trying to put this in, you can actually push the clamp. You can see right now, I'm pushing the thing. I'm not sure if you can see that or not on video, but just hold the clamp just to prevent it, just to get it started. Once you have one in, this one usually holds it for the rest of them. Just, you want to give them one turn, just to hold it, just to catch it. Just so they don't spring out again. Once you get to the last one, okay, that one's in. The next step is we want to put the top clamp and the bottom clamp on. One thing we didn't replace in the beginning, which we'll check out now, is the foam again. So we'll end up replacing this foam along with the other foam. This foam, just so happens, is a 1/2 inch wide by 1/4 inch thick. This is strictly for a dampening clamp. Let me go get some foam. Once you've replaced the foam on the top and bottom, take the 2 screws, put them through the holes again, just like you did on the slant side, and just come down with it to align it. Careful not to puncture the ribbon right there where those holes are. Do the same thing at the bottom. With these clamps, when you tighten them down, you don't want them super tight. These are strictly dampening clamps.
Alex DeCosta, please call the operator.
You want it to
Alex,
move a little
call
bit.
the operator, please.
When you go to start tuning it and sending a signal through it, approximately, I'm guessing 400 hertz, somewhere right in that area, you might find, play with this. If you loosen this a little bit, you'll end up hearing it buzz. And it's just a matter of getting it to the point where it's not buzzing. Do the same thing at the bottom. Strictly a dampening clamp. Keep your hands away. Just a little more. Keep in mind, if the ribbon is flexing like this and this is tight along with the bottom, it will not flex. It will end up ripping the ribbon. These shims, fairly loose, you can pop them out. Sometimes if they're snug, the silicone in between the 2 ribbons sometimes can act as a lubricant. And if there's a lot of tension on this spring, and this silicone is acting like a lubricant, it can slide. If you pop this out, you can slide this clamp all the way to the spring bar, leaving you no gap. So I would probably recommend just leaving the shims right in there until the speaker actually cures. At the top and the bottom, just tap the top and the bottom.
Alex
What you want
DeCosta,
to do,
please call the operator.
in between
Alex, please call the
between the
operator.
top clamp and the fixture clamp, just make it loose, because what we're going to do is end up trimming that off with a razor. Do the same thing at the bottom. Just tap it in a little, make it loose. Starting at one edge. Just trim it off. You want to avoid any sharp corners and edges. Same thing. Where the ribbon flexes, it could split right up. Trim the top off the same way. You can back the 2 fixtures away. If you have any extra, you can just trim it off. Just take this and just... Now what you're ready is you can take your 2 fixtures and throw them off to the side. And I'll set with these. Okay, it's been a day since I've last done this speaker, and where we left off is we trimmed the top and the bottom. I got the clamps off to the side because we're all set with those. I turned the speaker on its side strictly so I can show you the cuts that I have to make with the camera. You don't need to do this. What I want to do, both at the top and the bottom of the speaker on the slant side. At the top, you'll find 2 cuts. The top cut, the second cut coming down. What we need to do, underneath, you can see the block. Starting with the second cut down, we want to cut a box out, and I'll show you. Up to the second cut down. Just going to turn it around. What I want to do is cut a little rectangular box out, extending past the block. And I'll show you why in a minute. What we want to do now is go to the bottom of the speaker and do the exact same thing. Again, with the bottom, same thing. Second cut up from the bottom. If I need to, I'll tilt it. Here's the first one, there's the second one. I'm not sure if you can see it at the angle I was at.
I think you should use retraction in the winter when the car's or under your tire. Hey, you're here.
You want to cut it past the block again. Then what you want to do is connect the two blocks. Starting at the top. Use the clamp as a guide. You'll be cutting through all of these other little cuts. You connected the two. Now, simply at the top or the bottom, you just lift it up, just so you can, want to take the double-sided tape off. Once you take the double-sided tape off, what you can do with either a wrench, quick go get, okay, with one of your Allen wrenches, or maybe the Allen wrench that you took the connections off with, at the bottom, right on top of the block, use it as a guide. What I want to do is make a little strain relief, because we're going to make a connection here, and it just twists a little. I just want to have a little slack. Just very carefully slide it out. Attach it to the block. What we want to do is do the same thing at the top. There's no connections, but I try to make it a habit to be consistent. Just tack it down very carefully. Just turn it a little, just to pull it out. Okay. Now, the ribbon is stuck to this part of the block. I want to just very carefully roll it down. Then just grab the middle, just pull it a little. You want to just stretch it to take out some of the corrugation so you can lay as much of the ribbon down onto the double-sided tape as possible. Sometimes you'll have it like this. Just let it lay there, you should be okay with that. Then you can feel on the outside of the speaker, the outside part of the frame. Just take your razor and just trim it, just a little bit in, just so it's not going to be touching, say, the front cover when you put it on. fix this. Okay, the reason that we cut the little rectangular blocks out is so that, I'll tilt it up again, you don't want this aluminum foil to be touching by any chance the aluminum foil in there. This one, in my eyes, is a little close, so I'll just trim it a little more just to make sure I'm not going to touch. If you look at the top one, there's plenty of room between the foil. There's no chance that the foil will actually touch this clamp, short of peeling it off the double-sided tape. So what I'll do with the bottom one is I'll just trim it a little more just so I definitely will not, there'll be no chance of it shorting out. One thing you do want to make sure of, both at the top and the bottom, between the first and second line, when you're making that block, make sure you don't slip and try and accidentally cut through that. If anything, try to cut away from the two lines. That's a helpful hint that I've always lived by. Now, at the bottom, below, usually right below that first line, or right in that general vicinity, you'll feel a round circle from the T-nut where we took the crossover off. I usually just poke a hole just so I know where it is. Then what you'll need to do, where we made the cut on the second cut in from the bottom and the second cut in from the top, what we want to do is do the outside, the first line connection. The very bottom one. Just right at the tip of the cut, and I'll tilt it up again. Just cut it out as if extending that cut all the way out, such as this. Now what this is going to do is I'll make a connection here. When I make that connection, it's going to go straight into here. Just can't jump across. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the top part. Right here, around midway up the ribbon, you'll feel another T-nut where the other connection was. What you want to do is using the very top cut now, in the same fashion, you want to, I'll show this to you. You basically want to, almost as if you want to extend that cut down the side of the mid-range. Keeping in mind where that T-nut is. Once I cut this, I'll show you where it went.
Where did you put this junk in my bag? This dumpster or what? Oh, the artboard? Yeah, the artboard.
Because I know you like them so much.
No.
I'll give you a big one. It's a special art.
Don't forget to put this number on the computer.
It's magical.
When you do this, what you want to do is make sure that you take up the double-sided tape.
John Young, please down to 42, John to 42.
What, you got to go up?
La 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 la.
What my camera guy just did is he walked around and he showed you how it was cut. Again, what you want to do is leave enough room on either side for a decent amount of material. Also, in the same respect, you're coming down and you want to cut it to the bottom side of this T-nut. Okay? What I've tried to tell people, which the way the ribbon is connected, if you actually make the connections on one point, I'll show you on a quick picture what I've told people how it's actually being connected. Right on this piece of paper, I try to picture this as one of the connections. And then what I'm going to do, this part being the ribbon, it's going to go around and around until we get to the other connection. You're just making one connection, going all the way through the ribbon, and then coming out to the other connection. If that helps at all. Okay, what I want to do next is show you how to put the crossover on. We just want to, at this point in time, which would be a good idea, and actually before you even do the cuts, what I would strongly recommend is taking a piece of scrap corrugated or just something, very carefully lay it on top of the driver. You can lay it there to protect the woofer ribbon so no metal objects or anything fall in there or dings or dent, so you don't ding it or dent it. Also keep in mind, as you will know, everything underneath this is magnet, where you're using a steel T-wrench for your connections. If it slips and falls, it's going to suck right in where its magnetic field is. So, strongly recommend putting something right across this. What I'm going to do is turn the speaker back so I can just show you how to put the crossover back on. Okay. Basically, we want to, where we started before, just go in reverse of when we took it off.
I hit stop by mistake.
Turn the speaker on. I have my cover on it. Simply grab the crossover again. Just put it in its general position. Take the cup, very carefully, lift up on the bottom, pull it through. At this point, what I'll do, okay, keep in mind where on a caliper it would be brown or black, that would go all the way to the top. The yellow, or sometimes white, along with the coil, would go in here. This green one would be for the mid-range connection. At this point, what I would do, everything's basically in position. Little silicone, little bead to hold it on there again. Press it out. Same thing with the crossover. Just looking for enough to, basically vibration, but also, God forbid, if we have to do this again, you can get it off again. If you have a coil that popped off a little, just silicone. You have to take a piece of tape to hold it down, which you're probably going to have to do on this one. And what you want to do now, I have a air compressor with a staple gun for the coil. Just simply tack it in place, or if you want, you can just let it sit, dry. The staples are strictly to hold it in place so I can stand it up later. Before, the crossover was held on with staples. What I want to do this time is I just have a few smaller screws just to screw it in place and hold it down. Screw gun. to hold it down in place of the staples. Probably put one more there. Okay. Along with this coil, I'll grab my tape. Just to hold it in position while it's drying. Silicone sets up. Now that the crossover's back in position, what we can do is make the connections for the wires. The T-wrench, wherever it went. Taking a washer, again, the brown one, the washer, the screw with the lock washer, so just tighten it down. When you get to the end, what I try and do is hold the ring lug of the wire so that if it twists, I'm not really going to twist the foil. Okay. Doing the same thing at the bottom. At this point here is where, you know, if you didn't have this, a lot of times you have wires floating around, it'll end up dinging and denting it. That's why I strongly recommend that. A lot of times these have popped off of this. This will act like a spring and pop it off. Connect the yellow. Same thing, when you get towards the tight, just at this point what you want to do while it's curing and drying, just take these extra wires, just wrap it around this coil to prevent anything from floating around.
John Young, please call extension 294. John 294.
Take the white one over here, just pull it through, just to make sure it's not going to. Basically, we are at where we started from. The new woofer ribbon's in, we put the crossover back on. Things to highlight throughout this procedure, I'll put it on tape and also put it in writing for you. Key hints that I found: one, with the lining, the ribbon, when you putting the ribbon in, the edge of the straight side, be very careful of the edge of the ribbon to the grommets so you don't ripple it, along with when you're grabbing your blocks and you're stretching your ribbon so you can line it up with the lines. Also, try and pull it nice and evenly and slowly. Okay. Other thing, throwing the corrugated on top, making sure no wires fall inside, so nothing. Like I said, where this is all magnetic, that's where we've lost a lot of them. Anytime if you're doing this by hand, putting these screws down by hand, make sure you keep your hand between the ribbon so that you can't go in. For the most part, that be it. What I will do is also, anything else comes to mind, I'll write it down in that little helpful hints list.